for joining
Thank you.
us. We're very international today. We have a lady, Claudia, who's joining us from Italy right now. So, and somebody who I would like to join us from Japan, but because of the time difference, she'll just get the link from us eventually. All right. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our guest, Emilie Spear, today. But before we do that, I just want to go over a couple of ground rules. For those of you who are joining us online, we do invite questions towards the end of the session when Emilie has told us about her experience. If you would like to ask a question and remain somewhat anonymous, please feel free to write in the chat, and then I will get to your question and ask it. If you don't mind showing up on camera, you can raise your hand and ask your question in real time, but just know that you will be seen on screen. And the reason I point that out is we are actually recording this, and at some point it's going to go onto our YouTube channel, our Northern Virginia Irons YouTube channel, and it's going to be out there in the ether, okay, for time immemorial, however long all of this lasts. So there are some people who are very particular, really want to protect their privacy. I fully understand. So if you're joining us online, want to ask a question, you can do it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and do it where you'll be seen on camera. Those of you who are joining us here today in person, here at our venue, you can come to the mic and ask the question right here, or you can write it. We've got a couple of pads. Write your question, bring it to me, and I will ask Emilie in due course. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest. So our wonderful guest today is Emilie Spear. She and I have been talking for over a year, maybe a year and a half, about coming to talk to the Irons Nova group. And I'm just so happy that she's able to join us today. She's in Colorado, I believe. Now, Emilie had a near-death experience a few days after she gave birth to her twin daughters. As a result of some complicated medical issues, medical complications, and that changed her life. And so today she's going to be telling us about that experience, also sharing with us about the pool of peace, which sounds fascinating. She is a dedicated mom, a wife, and a successful businesswoman, and her experience changed her life very profoundly. She's going to tell us a little bit about who she was before the experience, about the experience, and then how the experience has changed her life and anything else that she wants to throw in. So without further ado, a very great welcome to Emilie joining us today. Thank you, Emilie. It's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie. I am so grateful that you invited me here today. And I also want to thank Mike out there, who's helping us coordinate all the technology. Every time when I have the opportunity to share my near-death experience, it's a gift to me because it helps me integrate the experience, and I get to discover something new about it that I can bring into my everyday human life. So I thank each and every one of you for taking the time to be here with me today. And I really hope that each of you receives something that will be of value for your life. So, yay. Just to check, can everybody hear me and see me? Is everything good?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So I thought today I'd share a little bit about some of the characteristics of who I was before my near-death experience, and then spend most of the time bringing you along with me on this journey to the pool of peace in my return. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers afterwards. So who was I before my near-death experience? I think there are like three characteristics about who I am. One is I have a great love for nature, and that was instilled in me when I was really young. I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, with a twin brother and an older brother, about 18 months older, so we were all very close in age. And in our neighborhood, we didn't have any fences between the houses. So all the neighborhood kids, we would get together and run around, and we had a forest behind us. And it was so often you would find us climbing trees, jumping over the creeks, trying to catch frogs. In the summertime, we would chase the fireflies. And in the wintertime, we'd make these wicked igloos and all these intricate tunnels between us. We also owned a motorhome. So my mom's family lived in the West Coast, and every summer we would take trips from the West to the East. going different places and had no real itinerary, but it instilled me inside of me a sense of adventure. And we saw so many of our national parks around our country here that in my 20s, I wanted to take that adventure internationally. And I traveled all throughout Europe to Australia, Asia, South America, and Central America. And one of the things that I love most about nature is that it instilled in me like a sense of wonderment. Oftentimes, I like to lie underneath a tree and feel the grass tickle my back and look through the leaves and see the sky and wonder, how far does that really go? And I love to listen to the birds that would go from here to there, singing their joyful songs. And I loved sitting underneath the cherry trees when the wind would come through and dance those little blossoms and fall all over me. It felt so magical when I was growing up. My mom was also a gardener, and I always was curious about these tiny little seeds that were brown, and it would be so easy to walk by them. But you tuck them in a little bit of soil and you give it a little bit of water, put it underneath the sunshine, then something magical begins to happen. I couldn't open the seed with my own fingers, but some inner power at some perfect time cracks open that hard shell and it jets a root down into the earth. And then all of a sudden, at the right time, it decides to shoot up and point itself to the sun. And then before I even know it, it built a bud appears and blossoms into this gorgeous flower. And I would get close to like inspect all of its details. And then there was this invisible fragrance that was so beautiful. And I thought in that moment, there's got to be a greater power, some divine, higher intelligence that was just giving me all these gifts to me. So I began to ask bigger questions with no answers were my favorite. I wanted to count all the stars in the sky when we were camping. But then as the night sky got darker, more stars would appear. It was impossible. Or when we would go skiing, I would see the snowflakes land on my mittens. And as I looked at each snowflake, each one was uniquely designed. And then I would lift my head and look at all the mountains all around me and go, oh my goodness, there are countless designs of these snowflakes. I was truly in wonderment. And I think that really sparked a sense of spirituality within me. I grew up in a Christian-based house where we celebrated Jesus' birthday at Christmas and his resurrection at Easter. But I knew the house that I grew up in was really open-minded when it came to religion. When I was 10, we moved from Pennsylvania to California, which is kind of like a tender, vulnerable age. I didn't know anyone at school. And I found myself having a lot of time at home. But there was this bookshelf outside of my bedroom door, and my mom is an avid collector of books. And I would sit there and I would run my fingers across them, and I would just pull them out and start looking to see what was inside. There was a series of encyclopedias, which was fun. You can just open it up and learn something new. But she also had books about poetry. Many times I didn't even know their author, but I loved Rumi. I found it fascinating. I could read the same poem over and over and over again and get something different out of it. There were other books about the Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh, Lasso, Joseph Campbell, The Four Agreements. There was a whole wide variety. And by the time I was in my 20s, I wanted to explore meditation, mindfulness, because I had a bigger question. Who was breathing me? As I was scuba diving underneath the water, I began to really notice my breath. And I would take long, deep breaths going up, trying to figure out at what point does it do a 180 and come back in. And it does this over and over again, whether I'm aware of it or not. And I started to feel this inner energy coursing through me. And I had even a bigger question. Where does my energy begin and where does it end? And then there's an outer world that has energy, and where does it begin and where does it end? So I decided to learn Tai Chi. And this is where I really began to understand how the energy between myself and my outer world started to intertwine. And I met a gentleman there. His name is Aaron, and we seem to have a lot of things in common. He was learning Tai Chi, had a spiritual curiosity. He knew how to ski. He was a banker and I was an auditor. We had so many things in common. We fell in love and got married. And then after a certain point, we decided, let's start a new journey, a new adventure. Let's have children. And before I knew it, I became pregnant and went in to see the doctor on that day to check out the heartbeat. And the nurse found one heartbeat, and we were so delighted. She kept looking, and she found another heartbeat. Oh my gosh, we're going to have twins. We were so excited. And my pregnancy was pretty good, even though I kept growing and growing and growing to the point where I couldn't even touch my fingertips around my belly. And so towards the end, I was pretty stressed. And one morning, I didn't feel very good. And so I just knew in my bones this was the day that the girls were going to be born. So we packed up and we went to the hospital. And as we got there, they ran some diagnostic tests and they decided, oh, you're developing preeclampsia. This is a medical condition that is life-threatening to the expecting mother. That's where the blood pressure skyrockets really high. And oftentimes during birth, the expectant mother hemorrhages. So immediately they prepared me for an emergency C-section. And I was in the operating room, and before I knew it, baby A was born. Wham! The baby B was born. Wham! And there they were in front of me, these beautiful children. I looked into their eyes, and they looked into my eyes. Brand new. And I've just felt an absolute love. And this sense of honor came over me. It was my job to take care of these two little beings, to nurture them, to care for them, to provide for them. They had to go back. The nurse came and brought them back because they were born about 6 weeks early. So they went back to the NICU. And I found myself in the post-op room. And before I knew it, Aaron came in and he told me with relief that the girls were just fine. They were out of the NICU room and they were back waiting for me to come out of post-op. But he got kind of concerned and he leaned down to me and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I think so. I can't really feel anything." He said, "You're lying in a pool of blood." I go, "Oh, well, I don't know." All the nurses around me were quiet, working on their computers. And then over a certain time, I think my body stabilized and they brought me back to the mom and baby unit where my baby girls were. And to my surprise, my twin brother was there. And I'll never forget this moment. I was in so much pain and felt so terrible. But to see my twin brother teaching Aaron how to change a diaper and hold a baby made me so happy. I knew it was just a matter of time before I could do the same too. We were there for a while, and because my body needed to recover, and we got to know all the nurses and many of the doctors. They tried to give us a few breaks so we can get a 10-minute nap here and there. And eventually it was our time to go home. And we packed up and we came home. My mother-in-law was there to help us, and we were surrounded with our family and friends. Thank goodness, because this was really hard. I was still quite recovering. But one day I woke up and something happened. It didn't seem right. My body didn't feel right. There's a lot of mystery when it comes to pregnancy and post-pregnancy, but this one, I knew I needed to talk to the nurse. So I called her. I told her what was happening, and her voice got really deep and very stern. And she said, "Emilie, you need to go to the hospital right now. You are not allowed to drive, and if you can't get a ride, call 911. Get into an ambulance. If you begin to hemorrhage again, go to the closest emergency room straight away." Ooh, she's being serious. So I immediately called Aaron. He came rushing back from the store, dropping all the diaper boxes all over the floor, swooped me up, and we made our way to the hospital. The same hospital we were just at a week ago. They were expecting me, put me in a wheelchair, wheeled me back, and started running diagnostic tests. They had no idea what was going on. They did a small procedure, and I found myself waking up into mom and baby unit. Well, this is wonderful. I got to see all the nurses from the prior week and some of the doctors. So that was comforting. But this time, they looked rather confused and concerned. They didn't know what was going on, and neither did I. And then suddenly, my body began to hemorrhage again. Now, they knew they needed to give me some extra blood, so they started to measure it. And there was a whiteboard right in front of me. And the numbers, they started putting the numbers up there, the tens, 50s, hundreds. And then it leapt to thousands. I don't know what any of that means, but that doesn't seem very good. The nurse Terse, who was sitting next to me, she was taking care of my vitals. She picked up on my stress, and she leaned over and put her hand on my shoulder and told me, Emilie, don't you worry. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I am not going to lose you. Oh, thank goodness somebody knows what they're doing in this room. That brought me some relief. And then I couldn't help but look at the vital machine that was sitting next to me. I could see my blood pressure. Last week it was extremely high, and now it is extremely low. How am I even awake? And then I looked at my heartbeat. Ba-boom. 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 I'm dying. I'm dying. 2 baby girls at home, and I'm dying. I look around the room. Nobody knows what to do. What can I do to extend my life? But maybe perhaps in that moment, someone in this room will know how to save my life. So I decided I'm going to meditate. And I looked over to where Aaron was standing, and he looked extremely concerned. And above him was like a schoolroom clock with a white face and black numbers on it, with black hands going around. And I decided to focus on that clock and take some deep, long breaths. What is happening? The numbers on the clock are disappearing. The entire clock face is turning pure white. Tercy, Tercy, what's happening? The clock is disappearing. Boom. She drops my head. Now, the next thing I see are 2 nurses coming in with a double rapid blood transfuser. And they're trying to stick a needle inside my flat veins. I see my body twisting and twirling and contorting, and my face excruciating, but I don't feel any pain. I see all the nurses, I see all the doctors, I hear them chittering and chattering. What's that? All of a sudden, this silver iridescent cord starts to appear out of everyone's heads. Some pulsed a little faster than others. Some were wider, some were thinner. They were all unique to each individual person, and every single one of them were absolutely beautiful. Huh. I wonder where they go. And so I began to follow them. It was rather dark around. There was nobody around me, and far off in the distance, I saw what looked like a movie screen. Something was playing, and in front of it was a handful of seats that were empty. Huh, let's go check it out. Let's see what's playing. And as I got closer, it was like random scenes flashing boom, boom, boom. Oh, those are memories of my life. Boom, boom, boom. But they were in no sequence at all, and they were scattered all over the place. Why were some things showing up and other things not showing up? So I decided to take a seat. And as I sat down, I started to focus in on one memory, the first one that appeared. Now, this was a very simple memory. I was simply walking along a bike path. But this is a different movie theater room. It was as if I was reliving the experience all over again. Because, see, now I could feel the sun and the warmth on my skin. I could hear the birds singing their songs. I can even smell the sweetness of the spring flowers. I could feel I could see the sky and the clouds. It was like perfect day. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. I was so happy inside. I saw this stranger coming, and the first thing I wanted to do was just say hello. And as I said hello, something else happened. In this movie theater room, I could feel what that other person was feeling, and they were having a hard day. And when I said hello to them, that uplifted them. And then they went on to another stranger and said hello, and that uplifted them. And then they said hello to another stranger, and that uplifted them. And it went on and on and on. And I got to feel all of that. Wow, I had no idea what a small act of kindness could do. Wow. Oh, then another memory appeared. This one wasn't so easy. I could see myself getting really confused. And I was talking to somebody and I was feeling irritated and frustrated. Oh, and now I started to feel how they were feeling and they were getting irritated and frustrated too. Ooh, and then I got to see how they went on and they talked to another person and they were getting frustrated and irritated. And that went on and on and on. And I felt all of that. Ouch. Oh, I didn't know. I had no idea. That was painful. So this went on, memory after memory, experience after experience, until finally I had a big question. And this question I definitely wanted an answer to. And the question was, how? How could I have loved differently? Especially in the moments when I was riddled in my confusion. I was raised and I was placed sitting at a bank of a beautiful, glorious, golden lake that went on for eternity. Pure, pristine. It was so peaceful. No one was around me. But oh, I did not feel alone. I have no idea where I am. And a memory came up of when my brothers and I would skip rocks across still lakes like this at sunset. And joy started to rise up inside of me. And before I knew it, this joy leapt out of my heart and skipped across this pool of peace. Boom, 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 boom. And suddenly, this fiery golden essence began to bubble up, dancing with my joy. And eventually, it merged with my joy, consumed it. and disappeared into the pool of peace and returned to absolute stillness, exactly like how it was when I arrived. And then far, far, far off in the distance, a sweet, gentle summer breeze came rolling through my cloud-like body, lifting me up, and this amazing bliss came pouring through me. Wow, I have no idea where I am. That was incredible. Oh, am I at the gates of heaven? Is God watching me? Ooh, if God is watching me, I better be a good girl. I better do the good things. I definitely don't want to make those same mistakes I just saw in that movie theater room. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, yeah, I made some mistakes. Sadness started to well up inside of me and regret. And before I knew it, a tear welled up in my eye, rolled down my cheek, and dropped into the pool of peace. Boom. And there goes the ripple effect. No, 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 no. This is not what I want to give God. No, come back, come back. But I couldn't get it. It was gone. Can't believe it. Here I am. And this is what I give. I couldn't help but cry even more. As my head was down, this beautiful being came and wrapped a cloak of mercy all around me. Oh, so comforting. And whispered in this ear, "You are forgiven. In your innocence of not knowing." Lifted my chin, dried my tears, and whispered in this ear, "Watch, for what happens next is very important for you to know." Well, that gave me some confidence, and I sat up and I watched. A far off, gentle ripple began to come closer and embraced my tear, held it, comforted it, cared for it, merged with it, consumed it, back into absolute stillness, just like how it was when I arrived. That sweet summer breeze came rolling through my cloud-like body, removing everything about that tear, every memory, every thought, every cause, every effect, and released me of it. It's completely healed. Oh, I'm free. Huh. I definitely do not know where I'm at all. I wonder if I'm at a place where I could free myself of all those things I saw in that movie theater room. Could I free myself of all my mistakes? Could I free myself of all my attachments, all my aversions, everything? So I thought, how much time do I have? Because I got a lot of work to do. I better hurry up. And so that's exactly what I did. I started throwing memory after memory into the pool of peace over and over and over again. And after each one, that pool of peace would arise and meet it perfectly, like two puzzle pieces, merging together, consuming it, and returning it to absolute stillness, exactly like how it was when I arrived. And that sweet summer breeze would come rolling through me, freeing me. My essence was getting thinner and thinner and thinner to the point where I could actually put my hand through my other hand. I can't believe this incredible experience until finally there was one last thing. This edgy, jagged thing. Oh, the shadow of the shadows, the skeleton in the closet, the part of me I hid desperately from anyone, including myself. Ooh. Now I knew the pool of peace would arise and meet whatever I gave it. It showed that to me over and over again. But this part of me, would it love this? And what would happen to me? If this is my last thing, what happens? Do I just completely disappear? Oh, hemming and hawing and questioning. What do I do? What don't I do? And then I had this sense of timelessness. Oh my goodness, I could be here forever thinking about this. Oh, I don't want to do that. So I decided, what the heck? I'll stand up and I'll throw it in there and see what happens. And I felt every single piece of this. And I stood up and I threw it at the pool of peace. Take that. And suddenly it jetted up, came up, and went right back at me. Oh my gosh, what have I done? Boom, 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 boom. Still exactly like how it was when I arrived. Unstained, unharmed, pristine, golden essence. It loved me. It loved every aspect of me, even the parts I couldn't love within myself. My awe and adoration grew so much. This unbelievable intelligence on knowing how to meet everything, this unconditional love. And before I knew it, there was this magnetic draw between me and the pool of peace. And I found myself falling into the pool of peace. And the most beautiful dance began between me and the pool of peace, raising, higher and higher and higher, until eventually we merged. And I was pinned to a cushion. Everything around me was pure white crystalline essence. The power and the energy all around me was this enormous, even pressure. It kept me so incredibly still. And every aspect of my essence knew that whatever was going to happen next required me to be still. Not even a thought could go across my mind. And then suddenly my back was straightened. All my life streams packed on top of the other. Brrr, like a string of pearls. And then far off in the distance came a beam of light. Evenly, precisely, and ever so intentionally came through my forehead and lit a star. Kaboom! I exploded into billions and quadrillions of pieces. I was everywhere in everything. I could dive down to the deepest sea and see every single grain of sand. And then I could jet out to the far off galaxies and see every single star. I could find myself flying across the rolling spring flowered hills, having their little petals tickle my cheeks like the bumblebees. I could see the fabric of time from the past, present, and future all overlaying each other, and I could weave in and out anywhere, everywhere, anytime. And then suddenly, this funnel of all this information was spinning around me, and I could hear this deep, deep heartbeat coming out. Boom, boom. Spinning and spinning. Boom, boom. I looked down in my heart and I could see this enormous wave of energy going out to eternity. Boom, boom. And then suddenly out of this funnel came two little girls' faces. And one of them said, "Mom, do you remember? You're supposed to be our mother." And on the side, I could see their life streams and all the opportunities and possibilities with me in it. And then on this other side, I could see their life streams and all the possibilities and opportunities without me in it. I want to go back. Boom. I find myself floating above my body back in the hospital room. I see all the doctors and nurses, and they're chit-chattering and wondering what to do next. But behind Tercy were a handful of angels playing these instruments I had never seen before and playing this glorious music. And they were lifting up what looked like prayers. And then sitting beside Tercy was beloved Jesus. He had one hand on one shoulder and his other hand on the back of her heart, whispering in her ear. He turned and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and our eyes locked eye to eye. And it was like this full exchange of energy. He knew everything about me, and I got to know him in a whole new kind of way. Then he asked me, "Would you like to go back?" And thinking of the funnel and those two beautiful faces, I said, "Yes." He got closer and looked deeper into my eyes, and he asked me, "Will you bring back what you learned?" And I couldn't help but look deeper into his eyes, and this flame appeared. And it was the same essence as the pool of peace. And I could feel the draw of going back and falling into the pool of peace. And everything about me, not even a thought, said, "I promise." Then I was escorted out of the hospital room, and I found myself in another movie theater room. But this one was very different. There was a white screen, and there's nothing on it. There were other beings in this room, and then something appeared in my hand, which looked like a magic wand, and I was being shown how to dip this wand into the sacred fires of the pool of peace. And as someone would appear up on that screen, I could tap that screen and I could see these shadows all of a sudden disappearing like ashes off of someone, just flying off. And I could see the light of that person coming through. And there was so much joy. And this went on over and over and over. This is exactly where I wanted to be. I got an answer to my original question. I'm so happy. I want to stay here forever. But then I feel beloved Jesus behind me, and I can feel a sense of urgency growing. And I heard him say, "It's time." And I was pulled out of that movie theater room back into the hospital room. And I could look down upon my body that was struggling extremely. And in that moment, I realized this essence, this part of me, I'm the life. I am the life. I am the life. And as I looked at that body, I realized it was a requirement for this essence to be down there to give it life. But here's the thing. I didn't know how to do that. There were no instructions and no one was telling me how. So I looked over to beloved Jesus and I looked into his eyes and I received a message saying, "It's a leap of faith." And he smiled and nodded in encouragement. Oh, a leap of faith. But as I look around the room, the nurses and the doctors still didn't know what to do. Like, well, that's not going to help when I get back down there. So I had some concerns. And I looked back at beloved Jesus, and he nodded, and he gave me some assurance. Okay. So then I grew enough courage inside of me, and I took that leap of faith. When I was falling backwards, beloved Jesus leaned over and he said, "Trust." And a golden seed fell down and landed inside of my heart. And I held on to that, for my life depended upon it. But I didn't know where I was. It was cold. No one was there. I felt really lonely. I couldn't see my body. I couldn't see beloved Jesus. I have no idea where I'm going or where I'm supposed to be, completely disoriented. And then I heard Tercy call my name. "Emilie, Emilie, stay with me. Emilie, Emilie, stay with me." And I followed her voice. And before I knew it, I opened my eyes and I could see Tercy. I could see the handful of angels behind her playing that sweet, beautiful music, lifting those prayers. And then next to her was beloved Jesus. And he looked at me and he winked and smiled, assuring me that I had made it. Now, wouldn't you know, all of a sudden, one of the doctors knew exactly what was wrong with me. It required another surgery in a very busy hospital. And then all of a sudden, an operating room just opened up and the most seasoned surgeon just came on duty. And I looked at him one more time and he just smiled. And I knew in that moment everything was going to be okay. Now, this was not easy because when I got back out of that surgery, I always found myself in the ICU. I was in a lot of pain. And I was missing those girls. And eventually I made it back home. But here's the thing. I plugged back into my old life, my marriage, my family, my friends. They saw me like nothing had happened. But here's the thing. Everything inside of me had changed. Everything. But the crazier thing is it was like somebody handed me a 5,000 puzzle piece. They scattered it all over the table. Some pieces were upside down, and I had no picture. I would have these fleeting ideas of the experience, but I had no way of how do you even piece this together? And what does it mean? What am I supposed to remember? This world was very different than the place I had just been. And it wasn't until 7 years later when I met someone and they had told me I had a near-death experience. And I thought, well, what is that? And this is where I started to learn more and more about a near-death experience. And I met some beautiful people who would just sit and just listen to me and my story. And slowly over time, I was able to put a few pieces back together again. And especially the people that would listen to my stories about meeting Jesus. Is that even possible? I knew in my bones it was. But all of these things started to really help me to eventually, someone wanted me to write it down. Just don't use your mind. Just let it flow through you in your heart. And that's exactly what I did. And before I knew it, the pen was writing it all in the pool of peace. And I was able to get it all down. But that was 5 years ago. What's happened since then? It's been integrating more and more and more. I'm starting to explore, what does this all mean? And what I have found the most powerful thing that I have received as a gift, especially in this time where the world is so chaotic and unpredictable, is that I can, at any given point, when something arises in front of me, I can stop, I can pause, I can take a very deep breath and bring that experience to the pool of peace and drop it in and watch it come up. Show me what I need to do. Give me the intelligence that I need. Show me how to love in a whole new way, how it comes together, how through that love, it actually dissolves and everything about it is removed, it's healed. And so this has helped me enormously. And still, even the moments when I get caught up, because I still work in corporate America and I'm raising almost 13-year-old girls today's age, I still get caught up. I make mistakes. But then again, I can still go to the pool of peace and just honor that. I'm learning. I am learning and I'm doing the best that I can in this moment and feel that forgiveness and take whatever it is that I'm learning in this moment with me. So maybe next time I do it differently. And honestly, I feel like that's like what we're all trying to do here. So we're all trying to learn. So thank you.
Wow.
Sure, there are some questions.
I think I have to say I've interviewed a lot of near-death experiences. I've been running this group for over 6 years now. In addition to the people I've interviewed, the people I've listened to, I have to say that your rendition is the most poetic, most lyrical, most beautifully descriptive that I've ever heard. I almost felt that I was listening to you in a play. As a one-woman show, just kind of really going into the experience and kind of acting it. I mean, that's just an extraordinary kind of just way of expressing it. So thank you for that. That's before we even get into any questions. I want to get everybody to ask questions, please, because that makes it so much richer. So please do prepare your questions. Wow. Amazing. I'm not sure where to start, but the pool of peace and how that's been able to help you, and the idea that when after you had this, you must have passed out, you must have flatlined. I mean, are there any records of that when Tercy, was that that was your
Yeah.
you throughout all of this? You must have flatlined at some point, because or did you not?
Well, I think my experience coming afterwards, I wanted to know because I'm an auditor, so I'm very analytical too, right? Like what's real, what's not real. But it was haunting me because it was like living and breathing inside of me. And so I did. 7 years later, I did go back to the hospital. I got my medical records. I lost more blood than what was inside of my body. I was in terrible condition. I don't know if I really flatlined. That was not in my medical records. But when I did go back to mom and baby unit, it was like this most synchronistic thing. No one was there. The only two people that were there were Tercy and the one doctor that received the message as far as what was wrong with me. And we went back to the room where this whole experience went. And I wanted to ask them if they had an experience too. And both of them did. And so when I talked to Tercy, I asked her, like, so when I was like in really bad shape, I said, what were you like thinking of at that moment? And she said, well, I don't know if I should say this, but I was praying to Jesus like I had never done before. And I said to her, I looked at her, I said, he was there whispering in your ear. And she just started to just cry and fall apart. And she goes, I knew he was there. And I asked my husband, Aaron, like he was very concerned, but he wasn't panicking. Like I would think, as a spouse, panicking, watching your wife, almost die. He said, I don't know how to describe it, but there was so much peace in the room. I just knew everything was going to be fine. It was just a matter of time. But none of that was clear. Like technically, it wasn't clear, like how it's going to be revived. But he just felt this assurance, like, don't worry, don't panic, everything's going to be fine. So,
So
yeah,
yeah, on a spiritual level, everybody was tuned in some way to what you were actually experiencing, it sounds like.
yeah,
And of course, you talk about the angels behind Tennessee and playing music. It's almost as though everybody was really privy to that, even though they didn't realize they were. That's really very, very interesting. Um, so the pool of peace that seems to have been such a key, prominent role in this experience for you. Um, was it actually more of a lake, a pond? I mean, was it really a body of water? I mean, you've obviously got the body of water in your screen behind you there. Um, and you were throwing one memory in after another, if I remember correctly. And it's almost as though the way throwing the memory into the pool was a way of cleansing it, a way of healing, and then you would be sort of rid of it, as it were, or at least be able to reassimilate it, but from a perspective of being very free from whatever attachment you had to it, by the sound of it. So it's really interesting because there's just huge symbolism there.
yeah.
Uh, and it's
I've contemplated a lot about it, like what was this essence? And it had a ripple effect, like dropping something in water. But it wasn't as dense. It was probably more like fire. It had like um, uh, it was very soft. It didn't have the same density as water would be, but it would move like water in some ways. And when I have contemplated this, and I still contemplate, I always learn something new every time when I process the pool of peace from my near-death experience. But the act, I was engaging, right? I was sitting there, but I was choosing what to do at that moment, and I was engaging with it, and I was releasing, I was surrendering, right? And so I sometimes when I get caught up in my stuff or whatever, I go, oh, I'm getting really tight in my thoughts or my feelings. This is the time to like soften, to relax, and whatever that density is this time to let go and to release it. But one thing I did learn about the pool of peace and that experience is you can't release something that you don't know. So that's why the movie theater room or the revisiting my life experience gave me that piece of information of the things that I was now ready to release. And in my releasing and having that be met by that divine love, didn't reject any of it. Like it didn't say, oh, no, I'm not doing that one. It always met it and mirrored it with this love and embraced it. And that's how it was able to be consumed and completely released
You seem to
through that divine love.
help us understand, because the first part was the experience with your memories in the pool of peace, but then you're with Jesus, and then you go into a different room, and it's almost as though there's a different screen there. Can you help us sort of reconcile the two, what those two pieces are, how they come together? It's a little bit confusing. I'm a little bit confused by it. I'm trying
Yeah.
to.
A lot happened. And so, like, I had a lot of confusion as well, like all these pieces, like, how do I piece this together? So I think of my experience as a journey, right? So like the first movie theater room was kind of like my life review. It was seeing the memories of that particular life. And then I was given that opportunity to heal that life, to release it, right? And I took that opportunity to release that, all the mistakes or even attachments. Um, and then when I chose to come back, I think that became a point where and I didn't really know this before having this NDE, how real that there's other beings, other lives. Jesus is still very much alive, and other beings as well that are supporting us and having our best interest. And I'm still trying to understand this other movie theater room, Angie. Like, what exactly does that all mean? But I think it's like a classroom. It's a place that I can go to as well, where I can ask, like, what am I supposed to do in this scenario? So a scenario will appear just like any other scenario. Like I'm in a meeting, at work, and something's happening. It's showing up on that screen. And in that moment, I can choose, well, how do I want to interact with that moment? And so it's very, for me, it's very alleviating knowing that I'm not alone in living this human life and having all these experiences. I'm trying to figure things out. I can get really quiet and go within and really ask for help. It's kind of a prayer, right? Like give me the wisdom that I need right now. Give me the love that I need right now to meet this situation differently. And so then that frees me from the recapitulation of patterning, right? So if I have trauma that I'm working on or something like that, I'm not repeating that trauma over and over again. I can stop and pause it and bring something new to the experience that will change it. And eventually a different pattern gets created. And that's one that I'm probably going to be happier with in the long run, right? Because I can choose to do that with more kindness.
It sounds as it's almost as though you were exposed to the pool of peace and exposed to this other room with a screen, but almost as ways in the experience to see how you can work through something, how something can be healed. And those memories, now that you're back here in the 3D world, it become a place that you can go back to when you're in a place of distress or uncertainty or confusion, kind of work it out. It's almost as though you've touched something, you touched something when you were on the other side that you can go to in your heart and in your mind now as a way of finding solace and healing. So you were kind of shown a way to muddle through whatever confusion you might be in by that previous experience. I'm not expressing that very well, but that's how it feels, right? So that's a
Yeah.
because you have something that you can resort to, you can go back to when you're challenged here, because you were kind of shown on the other side that this is really actually how it's all dispelled. This is really how it all works. So when you're back here, have faith that it's all going to work out. And if you can find your way back to that somehow, you'll
Yeah, because Jesus said to me, and it's a very powerful word, trust.
yeah.
And there's a lot of meanings behind that, but it's speaking to what you just mentioned is to trust that there is a higher I as a human being, I can grow, right? I can heal. I can change my life. I can how I relate with others or meet the current situation. I can do that differently at any given moment.
It's almost as though we think we're on our own, but actually there's a very divine, clever, brilliant, loving guidance system that's right there with us. If we could just sort of tap into it and trust it, we're actually not alone at all. It's right there all the time. And maybe, the actual seeing the screen, being with the pool of, being close to the pool of peace are just sort of symbols of that sort of guidance system, if you will, that you can tap into. So it's how much of your experience do you say sort of falls into the classic description and descriptors of a near-death experience? Because it doesn't sound as though you went through the proverbial tunnel and saw the light at the end of the tunnel necessarily. You weren't necessarily greeted by deceased loved ones. You were, greeted at some point, of course, by, Jesus. You're a Christian, so that would make sense. He would want you to be comfortable with that. Would you say that there are any others overlaps with what we are told are classic characteristics of the near-death experience?
Well, I think that first movie theater room when the scenes of my life was probably like equivalent to a life review
You,
because I saw the effects
yeah.
of my actions. So I was learning in that moment as well. So the results of my life. But I can recall one thing. This is just coming up. I don't. Anyway. I was about 18 years old, and something came over me, and I knew I was going to have twins.
Mm.
And then the next thing that came over me was that it's going to be really hard, but it's going to be really, really good.
Mm.
So when I was going through that moment where I was actually acknowledging my death, like physically, like I could see my heartbeat fading, I think that gave me that feeling came up again in that moment of like, just everything's going to be fine. I think that gave me that window to do that deep breath and to meditate. And I do think being in that state of calm in a moment like that, I think that opened, I don't know this for sure, but for me, my experience, it was the entire experience had that overlay of peace with it and curiosity and openness. I don't know enough of other people's near-death experiences to kind of like generalize that because I feel like everyone's experience is kind of unique to them, right? Like you receive exactly what you need in that moment of time to help you. I think that's also a common theme is like you're supported, you're being helped, you're growing and held in this like love that is truly indescribable. It's in the sense of oneness and timelessness that is very hard for the human mind to grasp the enormity of that.
How interesting that around the age of 18, years before you actually gave birth to your twin girls, there was a sense of knowing that you're going to go through this. I mean, maybe there was am I really going to go through this? Maybe I am not, but this is what I'm getting, right? Well, I'll keep the channels open. But how interesting that you remembered that. And
Well, it's funny because I thought I was out. Like, because remember, I went to the hospital first to deliver the babies. And I had, that was an emergent situation. And I thought, oh, good. Phew,
that was,
done.
I see.
And I thought for sure like that was done, right? But when I went back 8 days later, and then I was like, oh, now I'm in new territory.
Right,
What is
absolutely.
this?
Well, and also, if I remember correctly, while you were on the other side having that experience, it sounds as though your daughters spoke to you as well, from the other side almost, even though they were here. And that is, Mom, don't you remember? You're supposed to be our mom. It's almost as though they were reminding you of a life plan that you'd arranged with them, beforehand. And it's sort of, remember to come back. We agreed to do this with you, right? But also how extraordinary that you saw the two possibilities. I think you described it beautifully. On the one side, you saw them without you and all the possibilities of their lives. These are not your words, but you said it very poetically. And then on the other side, there are all the possibilities with you in their lives, and wanted to gravitate towards being with them. That was very beautiful. That's almost confirmation of the pre-life plan in some respects.
Yeah.
Um,
So 2 years after the girls were born, I had this experience because I was kind of like confused. Like I had all these little bits and pieces, but I didn't quite understand how they strung together or what any of that meant. And in some ways, that can be disturbing, right? Like, what does this all mean? I was taking the girls to the zoo, and so I was in the car, and I was about to back up, and the daughter who spoke to me on the other side, she was a little bit delayed in speaking, so she was about to, and she asked me her very first question. She goes, "Mom, are you gonna die again?" And I had the same reaction. I was in the car going, "What?" And in that moment, I realized she had her own experience too. And then I felt this urgency inside of me, like, I got to figure this out, right? I need to figure this out so that I can support them, you know, in their process of understanding what happened. So then I turned around and I looked at her. I didn't really know what to say. I just told her I loved her and that we are here right now. We're going to have a fun day.
Let me ask you, they were 2 years of age at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Had anybody actually told them what had happened to you when they were, a week old or so? Had anybody said to them, Mom actually died at one point? I imagine for such young children, probably, unless they were right there seeing what was going on and had some memory, they probably would not have been told, correct? Because we don't want to.
No, I mean, they may have heard things. They do know now. I mean, they're 12 years old and they know I'm doing this today and they know that they had an experience part of it. For many, especially my one daughter who asked me that question, she she has this really creative mind, and she used to tell me about a place called Pulseland. And in Pulseland, you could do anything. You could eat as much pizza as you wanted to. And my husband, Aaron, he could go downhill skiing and sit in a hot tub at the same time. You know, she would just go on and on about this beautiful place called Pulseland. And to me, sometimes I think that funnel, because there was that heartbeat, like boom, boom. I almost feel like that was kind of like maybe that was her expressing like her experience during that moment as she was trying to sort it out in herself.
The time that you were having the near-death experience,
Mm-hmm.
your daughters, as tiny as they
Yeah.
were tapping into something of their own. Is that what you mean
Yeah.
when having their own experience?
And it was at times it became very uncanny 'cause she would use the same words, or describing it in her own way, but similarly, like so I knew in my heart then, oh, something happened. We all had an experience.
Absolutely, including the people in the room at the time in the hospital.
Mhm.
Wow. You also talked about a beautiful being that came to comfort you, I think, when you were in the first part of the experience, when you were having that sort of life review. When you saw a stranger, you were walking along a path, and you greeted the person. You just said a friendly hello, and you sensed that how that lifted their mood, and how they then went on and lifted somebody else's mood. And conversely, I think you were you had a memory where you were with somebody and you were having a conversation, became very frustrated, and that frustrated them. And then there was the ripple effect. They sort of went on to frustrate other people, as it were. And then at some point here, you have this experience with this being that comes to comfort you and says you are forgiven in your innocence of not knowing. So, any sense of who that being was, and what did you make of that very profound sentence?
Um, First, it was very clear. It was word for word. I I don't think I could put a name on that being. Um, it felt feminine and nurturing, lots of feminine energy. And it's I'm struggling with words because it's hard to articulate something so magnificent. The mercy and the forgiveness that I felt in that moment is really out of this world, like really out of this world. It's really hard to comprehend. And that's where a lot of times I spend time reflecting on that. Like, how do I practice that kind of forgiveness and mercy in my everyday life when I see things that are painful to witness, right? But one of the things that helped me in that sentence was, you're innocent in your not knowing. Because the minute that you know that we're all interconnected, and if I were to cause harm to you, I'm actually causing harm to myself, that drops. You want to care for others like how you want to be cared for, right? That's easy to understand. But I think by seeing things or people or situations in the innocence of not knowing opens a door inside my own heart to forgive. And that also gives me the opportunity to be of service in that moment, to hold a different energy so that it doesn't recapitulate the patterning of pain and hurt, and just hold this space so that there's an opportunity for healing to happen, because, or insight or something to happen in that situation, so it can move beyond that, right? It can move beyond the pain and the suffering that's going on.
Do you think that feminine presence, that feminine essence, was said that to you because she sensed at some point that you were distressed by some of the negative
Oh yeah.
review, and she was just trying to comfort you and let you know, you didn't know,
I
um,
didn't know.
done it knowingly, almost in a way. This is a little bit sort of extreme, but almost the way Jesus, is purported to have said on the cross, Lord, forgive them for what they do. They know not what they do exactly. We don't know. We're very ignorant. And so there's almost a way of comforting if you'd known,
Mm-hmm.
done such a thing.
And forgiveness, we got to start with ourselves, right? And I think that's what I learned too, is by forgiving myself first.
Well, as they say, you can't give away something that you don't have in yourself, right? So you have to
Exactly.
start with the self-love, self-forgiveness, self-acceptance. If we can be at peace with that, then we have it to give in space
Mm-hmm.
to other people. But if we don't, can't give it away. Um, what about this? I mean, I don't want to be private or anything, whatever you're comfortable with, but you said that there was the last thing the last memory, if you will, or the last aspect of yourself, which was the real test. Can I throw that into the water and would that be healed? Because other things have been healed. Um, do you want to say a little bit more about that? I mean, because obviously, I think it sounds as though it's very deep, and maybe it's that sort of deep-seated sense that we all have of ourselves. Maybe there's an aspect of ourselves that we can't quite accept completely. We have a hiccup with it. I'm not sure. It just sounded as though it was the real test. If it could take this and heal it,
Yeah,
it
I think I have a couple of things. I mean, one, yeah, it's like the part of us that we probably might carry shame or guilt around, things that again, they're just mistakes, but maybe they're heavier consequences associated with them. The other part of that too, in that moment, was always the last thing. I really didn't know if I would just like disappear into oblivion. Like, what did that mean if I really gave up everything? What would happen next? And the scary part about that was the very last thing I gave was probably associated to shame and guilt. And what would come of that if I give like the sounds like it is kind of a judgment, but that's kind of how it felt, of the shadow of myself. Like, what am I going to be doomed forever? Those sorts of things. That is not what happened. you know that gave me great relief. And I think after when it was embraced and loved, I was in so much awe of that love that's what I'm saying is like it's beyond any love we can comprehend, that it loved every part of me. And my love grew so much in that moment with the pool of peace. And I had a friend, her father was passing, and it was a difficult time. He was scared because he had made quite a bit of mistakes in his life and regrets. And he was like calling people up saying sorry, trying to make amends because he was afraid of what was going to happen on the other side. And he knew his time was coming close. And when I shared that, particularly that part of the story with him, that there's this love and this forgiveness, and that, it's great that he's connecting with people and sending him his love and apologies. That's a beautiful thing. But he had so much more relief knowing he's not going off to this terrible place, that he was able to then pass when it was his time in a much more peaceful place. He had made ultimately amends with himself. He was really forgiving himself. And I thought that was really powerful. I never really know how, when I share my story, what happens afterwards. But what I do know is that it really does help some people in whatever way. It's magical.
Did you share with any of the doctors? I know it took you several years to really learn about the near-death experience. Did you ever keep in touch with Tercy? Did you ever go back? Did you ever let them know that you'd had this experience? Was it something that you completely closed down because you were worried that it wouldn't be well received?
There's a combination of things. I was really busy with twin babies. That kept me pretty occupied. Um, I I would have to say I was nervous, right? Like, did I just make all this up? I mean, what happened? But it was kind of like this haunting thing inside of me. And then eventually another friend of mine encouraged me to go back to the hospital 7 years later. And another part of my visit before, I can't remember if it was before or after, but part of my hospital visit, what it was, I went to the ICU unit because the nurse that was taking care of me after my second um, surgery, he was, he helped me. I told him, I said, I want to go home. I want to be with my babies. And he's like, you're a fall risk. You can't move, yada, yada, yada. And I said, I have to get home. So he was so sweet. He showed me how to use my body differently and stuff. When I went to the ICU to see him, because I wanted to thank him, the director of the ICU unit saw me and she pulled me into her office and she's like, I want to know your story. And I honestly felt like she was like an earth angel. And I was telling her all the little bits and pieces. And she assured me, she said, this really does happen. And I want you to speak to all my nurses because they play a big part in a lot of these experiences. And it gives them like a sense of not closure, but it makes sense for them too, because they're experiencing these things. And so like when I spoke to Tercy, it was as if her puzzle pieces came together too, right? So I had an experience where that was received in the hospital. Now the doctor who received, like what to do next, she was more matter of fact. And I could feel that. And so that's okay. But she did, what was interesting is for 7 years, she wondered what happened. She was very invested in wanting to know I was okay.
Mm.
But she's like, I was always wondering about you. I'm so glad you came back.
And
I
also
think
you were
that gave
given
her closure. Hmm?
yes, and you were given a choice. Not everybody's given a choice.
Yeah, it took a lot of courage, Angie. I didn't really know how it was going to be received. It took a lot of courage.
To come back or to actually share your
to
experience?
share my experience and to
Okay.
ask people.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. But it sounds as as well. It landed well. That's really wonderful. It's not.
Yeah, I was grateful.
I was referring to Jesus giving you a choice when you were on the other side. And I think you said that he actually asked you something like, would you like to go back? And also, will you bring back what you learned? So what was the subtext there, do you think? What was he to kind of share?
It's been like 13 years, still trying to figure out the
Out of,
subtext go on and on and on.
yeah.
I think the first time when he asked me, I was thinking about my daughters, right? Coming back for them. And he accepted that. But he wanted me to know more, right? He wanted me to remember the love that I experienced on the other side. And I think ultimately, he wants me to practice that. So when I have these wonderful opportunities to share it, it brings me so much joy because that has a ripple effect too. And so it helps me fulfill that promise because I made a promise to him. It wasn't just oh, yeah, sure, I'll try to do that. It was, no, I promise to do that. And ultimately, I think where I'm at right now is when he was showing that love in his eyes, he was also showing me what we all are, who I am really, who you are really, who everybody really is underneath all the masks and layers is this beautiful presence of pure love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's ultimately what I'm meant to remember is to that seed that got planted in my heart is in everybody's hearts. And the more that I can really focus my intention and my attention on that seed in everything, the more it magnifies and it just takes care of everything else. And so I have noticed I don't have to like work so hard mentally figuring things out in my human life. If I can just go down into my heart and just remember those simple things that, oh, behind all that is this pure love inside of every single human being. That's where they came from. And then I think, again, that holds that space for that to come out of.
Can you tell us a little bit about Jesus? Did you see his face? Did you actually interact with him? You said you looked into his eyes many times. You actually interacted with him as you would a regular person on this plane. Can you tell us a little bit about him? What he looked like and what he felt like? Did he have a sense of humor? Obviously, there's a tremendous.
Definitely.
Good.
Joyful.
What's that?
He's very joyful. Like
Enjoy.
there's joy in his loving. He loves everybody and everything, and there's joy in that love. So so there were spoken words, very few, but most of it was more of this energy exchange. I don't know, maybe it's called telepathy if we want to put a label on it. I'm not sure. But there was just this knowing between each other, this exchange of information, if you will. And he often smiled and, nodded, like encouraging me, like, this, yes, you can do this. Blue eyes that were like just so clear and pristine. His robe that he was wearing, it looked like wool, but it wasn't wool. It was much more refined, but it kind of had that uh, earthy texture to it. And woven in there was like golden threads. So it shimmered. And his presence was just such pure peace. And it was just unmovable. Um, and the sense of love and acceptance and joy, like seeing me in my own essence, right? He wasn't trying to manipulate me or do things or anything like that. He was just seeing me in my fullness. And he was so happy to see that. And that just helped, that brought happiness inside of my heart too. It was just really joyful exchanges.
And
And I was very grateful for his presence and his encouragement too.
you knew who he was. Did he identify himself as such, or was there just a knowing on
Oh,
your?
it's just a knowing. We had this like moment where when we first greeted each other, it was like this kind of exchange. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like a full exchange of understanding who each other was. And there was just no doubt.
You
No
said he
doubt.
had blue eyes, and that's interesting. Does he look anything like the portrait that was painted by, I was gonna, I forget her name, Ariana, Akiana, I think her name is, the very young child who's now a grown-up woman, but who was inspired to paint, has a wonderful gift. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't.
Oh,
So I don't know if I can.
okay. Oh,
I think like some of the familiar things that we see of pictures of Jesus, he's blue eyes and he has kind of like slightly wavy hair. It's a little bit long. But I was so fixated on his eyes and the robe. I got to see the robe when he was talking to Tercy, right? When I saw him from behind, I could see that. But when he turned around and I looked at his eyes and our eyes exchanged, I knew exactly who he was. Yeah.
interesting. I
Yeah.
should look that up and send it to you just because
Yeah.
uh, the young man, Colton Burpo, I think, the little boy who the book was written, heaven is real, heaven is for real. At one point, I think there was a moment where he became aware of the portrait that this young Akiana, sorry, I'm not ready for this, so I'm trying to remember the names and everything, said that's exactly what he looks like. So I will send it to you. There are portraits all over the internet, and he does have sort of bluish green eyes and a wonderful expression about him. So let me ask you, your family and how your experience has been received. It sounds as though it's gone over well. I'm very happy to hear that. You do know, of course, that the divorce rate in for experience is exceedingly high because often they come back and they're changed and their spouse isn't able to sort of keep up, recognize who they are now, etc. Did your family receive this well? Your daughters, they must know your story by now. I imagine they're a softer audience than maybe some of the adults in your family, but how has that gone down?
Well, I feel really blessed. My family is very open-minded, curious. They like hearing about it. Um, yeah, that is a gift, isn't it? Like I don't feel judged by it. They're very supportive of me, sharing it and listening to me. In fact, that helped me a lot afterwards because they would listen to me and ask questions, and I could get little pieces back into this little brain. Um, and as far as marriage goes, I think one of the things I'm also grateful with from my marriage is before I had my NDE, Aaron and I both practiced Tai Chi together. And we also shared a lot of spiritual just curiosities. We learn different things, but they're also very similar in a sense, kind of. And I think because our foundation of our relationship is based more spiritually, that has helped me. And he's open-minded about it. But he would say, yeah, you're not the same person that you were, 13 years ago. But I guess I'm like, yeah, but we all changed. We all changed through life. But I'm grateful that he honors and respects my story.
It's very, that's a wonderful gift right
Yeah.
there. As we
And with that too, there are challenges, Angie. I won't, there are truth. There are some friends I've left, like there's no way. Or no way can someone actually meet Jesus. Like that's not real. Whatever it is. And what I what I try to do is I try to go back and to that point of innocence, right? All they're doing is sharing with me their experience and what they understand at this moment in time. And so then I can just open my heart and say, that's okay. I'm not here to convince you one way or the other. You know, it's okay.
People are on the journey and they're at different points on the journey. And some
Yeah.
people are ready and some people aren't. Um,
Yeah.
so you have to take them where they are, as it were. How extraordinary when you decided to come back, and you got Jesus said trust, and then you were back in your body, and then all of a sudden, as you said, that the right doctor came along, or the doctor knew exactly what was wrong, and a room for surgery opened up, and there you were, being able to be operated upon. Um, it was such a puzzle before, and then all of a sudden it became clear. Did they determine what it was that happened to you that was such a mystery?
Well, they actually, the doctor who found out, she remembered a very rare condition for women. And all the other doctors said it's impossible. It's like 1 in a million. Like there's just no way. It's so remote. And she came up and said, hey, I think this is what's going on. And the only way is to, go through another surgery. And she did, or she gave me another option. And I said, no, I want to go home. I want to be with my babies, do exactly what needs to be done so that I can, recover from that. And she said, no one believes me, but can we take an autopsy of my uterus afterwards? And I said, absolutely, whatever you need from your end. Right. And so when they did that, it confirmed the condition that she had thought it was. And so I'm really grateful. And I told her that when I saw her 7 years old. Thank you so much for listening to your intuition and this far off remote possibility. And you followed through with that. And I just thanked her so much. I said, because that saved my life.
Well, you can just imagine Jesus whispering into her ear, it's such
Possibly.
and such. And then she goes, oh, how about if it's such and such and such? And she acts on it. So, yeah, I mean, the timing was just perfect. So, yes, indeed, he obviously must have put that idea into her mind.
It's
That's
comical in a way, like the mystery of it all.
what a coincidence, the timing of it all. It's no coincidence. No
Exactly.
coincidence. Are you able to kind of commune with Jesus in the way that you did before on a regular basis now?
Often.
It's been wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the thing I most appreciate about his life or his experiences, he walked here on planet Earth.
Mm.
He experienced a lot of the trials and challenges that we have. And he had his own journey. I can't say I know everything about it, right? But oftentimes when I'm finding my challenges as a human walking this path, I'll sit with him and say, oh, what am I supposed to do?
Mm.
How am I supposed to deal with this? This is hard. This can
Mm.
be really, really hard.
Mm.
And so oftentimes he'll share with me a memory of his experience. And I find that really inspiring. And sometimes he'll often say, I'm walking beside you. I'm never leaving you. I am always with you. And so then times when I feel like I just don't know what to do, this is too much. And he'll ask me, well, just pretend you're talking to me. Like put me between you and somebody else and just look at me and talk to me and I'll take care of everything else. And that gives me great relief of like, oh, okay, I'll just pretend you're there. But it's not really good pretending because it starts welling up in my heart. And then that's what I feel. And then I can just let go, like just trust and let go that
So if you
whatever needs to be sorted out will.
so an issue comes up and you're not sure what to do with it, and he has invited you to just bring it to him. Is that what you're saying? Tell him about it,
Mhm.
and he's going to take care of it for you.
Mhm.
So you can just hand it off, as it were, and trust that it will be taken care of. And I'm assuming it does get taken care of because you do this whenever you need to, right? And
Yeah.
as often as humans,
It it can take some time, before it unfolds, but I think that's where that trust comes into place, right? Like just remember to trust because everything, like you said, is all kind of synchronized or orchestrated. So everything kind of like needs to work itself out in its own divine timing. So for me, is I just need to practice trusting and asking for that assistance and trusting that. And sometimes what I have found is because I've given something space or time to sort itself out, it it simmers down, right? So in some ways it's kind of practical. It's like I don't always have to be reacting to everything, right? I can just slow things down, create more pauses, and remember, right? Remember that peace that's inside of me.
we all should do that.
I know.
To all of us. I was going to say we're one down, so please bring your questions. I do have a couple of questions here. Do you feel more connected to the higher realm on a daily basis?
I do. And sometimes this world gets really confusing. Like, what are we doing? I don't understand.
Especially now.
Yeah, and the other thing too is what is kind of sometimes odd for me is when I was at the Pool of Peace, my memories were removed. So when I sit around a table with my family and we kind of recall memories, from the past childhood, I literally have no memory of it. I have no memory and I have no, like, it's very neutral feelings. And so when the story starts unfolding, I'm actually kind of like a blank slate and I'm like hearing it for the very first time. And so, which is kind of cool because then I'm hearing it from their perspective and what their experience was. I don't really know what any of that means, but it is an opportunity. Like, oh, I can just hear their story, their experience. So
These aren't the memories necessarily that you threw into the pool of peace. You're talking
it
about.
could, it could be. Some things are deliberately.
Okay, that's interesting. I wonder if it's because they were healed in some way and sort of taken away just to lighten your load. And that's very interesting. So
Yeah,
possibly the memories that were healed are not memories that you're privy to anymore.
true.
That's different, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
unusual.
it can
Um,
be a little strange at times,
uh,
too, right?
whether you're getting some early dementia or something.
It's like, what is going on? So there's challenges. Like I can feel the other side, but then I'm also walking in this world. I'm still living in this world too. And that functions and operates differently in a
Now,
way.
a lot of experience has come back with gifts, gifts of mediumship. They are able to know things before they happen. They're able to heal people. Do you have any of those? You do.
Oh
Can you
yeah.
tell us a little bit about those?
I I travel at night. I go to places and do service, whatever that is. And then in the next day, I see it in the news. So
Oh,
there's affirmations. Um, I try to keep it very just innocent. Like I'm just doing this. My higher self, if you will, is doing this. And I'm okay with it because whatever it's offering is good and is being in service. So I just trust that. The other thing too is I'm a group of us, there's three of us internationally. We do group healings where it's energy healings, where someone who has requested to receive some energy healing, we can come together and hold the space for that person to receive that energy healing. And it always surprises me how it literally, like that breeze that flows through me, it unwinds things for people. And so that group is called Become Higher Self. And I have a Facebook page, and it's also I have a very small web page called awakeningpeacewithin.com, or you can contact me there too if anyone is of interest to do that.
Can you give us an example, or would you like to share an example of how you go out and you have an astral projection? Would that be, or out of body experience, or maybe it's a little bit of both, and then you see something in the newspaper the next day that affirms that you went in to help. An example? That's
Well,
fascinating.
recently, what I'm seeing often is I'm seeing a hand, I believe it's Jesus's hand, and it's touching other people's hands right now. That if they're caught up in thoughts or feelings of violence, that the hand is being placed on top of that person that's struggling with that feeling and simmers it down. And this is my current thing that I'm constantly seeing. And so now I'll practice when I'm meditating. If I see something that I feel like, oh, this beautiful hand can come and just calm that hand, because that's a source of our activities through our hands, and to bring peace to the hands of people who are making decisions that could be impacting people internationally. So that's been my current practice. And I've seen people change their minds. I don't want to get too specific because I don't want to.
Yes.
I don't want to charge people individually
Yeah.
or private. Some things are private. So
Oh, fair enough, fair enough. Can you share a situation when you have received divine guidance? I'm sure there are many, but is there anything in particular that comes to mind?
I feel like it happens every day. Here's a simple one. Like, I was driving to Denver for a class, and something came through me that said, get over 2 lanes right now. Why? There's no traffic. Nothing's really going on. I move over 2 lanes, and then before I know it, a huge piece of metal was in that lane that I was driving in. And then I see that go by, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much, because I would have been in a terrible accident in that moment. So there's like moments like that, or there might be moments like at work. Let's say I'm in a meeting and there's someone getting upset, and I'll just feel into that. And then all of a sudden I will feel why that person is triggered, or what is causing that pain. And so then I just take that deep breath and really relax and just say that person's doing the best that they can right now, and try to meet them with kindness and respect. And then when I do that, naturally it changes, right? It changes the vibe of that meeting. And then that's that. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be, bigger or more complicated. It is just really, how can I be this essence in the world?
And do you think that that's divine guidance, or do you think it's your higher self, which is one and the same at some level, of course?
It's all the same.
It's all the same. Exactly, it's all the same. What do you feel is most important for your listeners to learn from your experience? What's
Mm.
what's the big takeaway, you think?
Forgive.
Well, believe. Is that what you
Forgive. Forgive.
said?
See things in innocence, and especially during this time where there's so much chaos and agitation and distraction, self-care is so essential to like really take breaks, get out in nature, slow it down, connect to the breath, and remember there is a divine plan. Things are unfolding, and how we are in the world is going to ripple out. So if what Gandhi says, be the peace or be the change in the world that you want to see. And so that really means that sometimes for me, I'm so sensitive, I have to unplug from this world and really get in touch with myself and in nature and really calm down before I can re-engage. So that self-care piece is really important. If we want to change what we see in the world, we got to start with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. In your experience, was there any sense of reincarnation being real? Obviously, one of your girls mentioned, Mom, you're supposed to be playing the role of our mom, so that suggests a little bit of pre-birth plan, as it were. But anything that suggested that reincarnation you may have had several different lifetimes. Sometimes people do touch that, and they see.
Yeah. I think the only moment that was really clear to me around that, and I didn't get a lot of information around it, was when my back was straightened and it was like, it went like that. It was like all my lifetimes were stacked on top of each other in
Oh,
this perfect line. But I don't know much more than just that. That was all that was revealed to me in that moment.
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Work with people individually. You said that you're a group of 3 or
4.
4 in total, but do you work with individuals yourself? I know you're still in the workforce in regular life, but as a result of the experience, sometimes people become great healers individually and help people through their traumas and difficulties in life. Do you do any of one-on-one?
I
Any
do.
kind of work? You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. People can always reach out to me and I'd be happy to help them in any way that makes sense. So,
Mhm. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
oh no, I thank you so much, Angie. Thank you for everything that you do, and thank IANS for everything that it does too, because it really helps not only the experiencers, but the whole world, right? With that ripple effect. So thank you very much. And thank
Well,
everybody who attended today.
thank you. Please continue the great work and the sharing that you're doing, because you are touching souls in ways that maybe we can't even imagine. That ripple effect is amazing, isn't it? It just keeps going and going and going. So thank you for everything that you've done and are doing. And thank you for joining us today. It's been a great pleasure. I know it was a long time in coming, but it was very worthwhile. For the wait was very worthwhile. All right. Take care of yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Everybody who joined us today.
Bye.
Bye. You want to say bye? Bye.
Bye.
Oh, okay. 1 second. 1 second.
Just to tell her, she's so animated that I don't know if she can hear me.
I think she can.
Okay,
Yeah. Thank you.
that stories come alive.
Yes.
That she could do so well reading stories and telling stories to children. Because you put so much of your heart and soul into
Yes,
it, you
yes.
really make a difference.
And that touches on that sort of poetry and, the wonderful
yes.
lyrical way of expressing yourself that I was referring to earlier. I don't know if
Thank
you
you so much.
Okay, this is the portrait of it's gone dark. Oh, sorry. This is the portrait of Jesus that was painted. It looks like a photograph, but it's actually a portrait that Akiana, never remember her last name, actually painted. Her name is Akiana Kramaric. I can send this to you, Kramaric. She's a young girl who, around the age of 7, was inspired to paint, and things started showing up on her doorstep, and she's just very, very gifted. And this is a portrait of Jesus as she saw him. And Colton Burpo, the little boy from, Heaven is for Real, said that that's exactly what he looks like, and he's got sort of greenish, bluish eyes. Does that?
I can't really see the color of his eyes, but when I was interacting with him, he had like a little squint, like when someone smiles,
Yes.
the eyes. So it's very joyful. Yeah. The nose.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's more than one. And apparently, somebody, if I know this, if I remember the story, somebody showed up at her door a couple of days before she was sort of moved to paint Jesus, who looked. I mean, I'm not saying it's Jesus, but somebody who was tall and had that sort of bone structure. so that she could actually see a person, and then she was inspired to paint.
Oh, that's beautiful.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll let you go. Thank you again. It's been
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. Bye.